Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. So in the last class, we were studying from the 33rd to the 36th verse of the 6th chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita, where we find that the Bhagavan is instructing the spiritual mode of our practices. What are the practices which entails in our spiritual enlightenment? And he highlighted that all the spiritual practices can be at last broadly classified as Abhyasa and Vairagya. That these are the two pillars of all our spiritual practices. Vairagya entails in the renouncing all the Vyakta Vasanas, as we were indicating, that we have innumerable desires in the form of mental modules. They are innumerable. Some have manifested, some are not manifested. They are hidden in our psyche, most probably in some different birth, or even in this present birth with the change of circumstances. Those desires which are hidden, those mental modules which are hidden, they will find expression. It just needs the proper environment for them to spring back to action. So now we can control their desires to a certain extent with willpower, with the help of willpower, with the help of Pratipaksha Bhavana, the contending thoughts, second line of thoughts. To a certain extent, we can control the Vyakta Vasana. But what about those Avyakta Vasana? Have we to fight with our desires one after other whenever they manifested? That way there is no end to it. There are so many innumerable desires. As Sri Ramakrishna in his days, he found in the Ganges, the Howrah Bridge was yet to be constructed. There was a bridge of boats. They used to tie the boats, all the floating boats, across the Ganges. There will be innumerable boats, all anchored to the shore, on both the shores. And there will be many ropes connecting to those boats so that they don't move away, they don't get drifted away. They are in place, and that's how the bridge was constructed. All used to walk across the bridge. It was actually of the boats. When Sri Ramakrishna saw that bridge, he, the master of examples, immediately he told, that's our condition. He said that if you just even cut one of the ropes, nothing happens to the bridge. There are so many ropes, even if you cut one rope, the other ropes are there to keep the bridge intact. It's made of boats. So he was saying that similar is our personality. There are so many innumerable mental modules. Each constitutes a particular type of desire. That even if I get rid of one with my conscious attempt, the others are there to keep my personality, this limited personality, intact. And as per the change of circumstances, again the new desires comes up, and I find again I have to deal with it. Shall it go on through eternity? So that's why Bhagavan said no. There are two types of practices. One is the short-term practice, another is a long-term practice. What is the short-term practice? That is Vairagya. That whatever desires are manifested in your mind, to a certain extent you have to subdue them. Otherwise your mind won't be calm. Your mind will always be agitated. So you have to subdue those Vyakta Vasana, the manifested desires, through Vairagya. And then, with that calm mind, now you have to take care of that long-term sadhana effect. What's that? You have to go on contemplating on the fact that I am not this limited body-mind complex, I am not the ego, I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses. I am beyond that. I am the eternal spiritual entity. It can be done in two ways as per our temperament. Mainly two ways. Either it can be done through bhakti or through jnana. That if I am a person of devotional temperament, highly emotional, I always want to relate to someone through love, emotion, then I can think that the ultimate reality is the Paramatman. I am the Atman. In essence, I am the Self, which is eternal. This body-mind complex will disintegrate one day, will fall off. It is constantly going through changes, and one day it will fall off. But the real me never gets annihilated. It's there, and it's in eternal association with the divine. Is always there through devotion, linked to that. So this idea also is a negation of the idea of your limited individuality. So that's a bhakta that can meditate that way. That's a real meditation of a bhakta, relating to the divine through love, not asking for any worldly gain. I want only that ultimate goal, to be in union with you through eternity. That's what the bhakta wants. And a jnani who is more prone to analytical study of the existence, he finds that everything is a flow, everything is a change, everything is constantly changing. But one thing which is sasang vedya, they say, that you yourself will. There is no need for anyone else to make you feel that. I can doubt in the present world every existence. With the present day, with the AI, artificial intelligence, they are saying that they can develop an artificial intelligence which looks exactly like human. They can do. Now, if one artificial intelligence is sitting and you are sitting, how can I distinguish? I can doubt that everyone there is artificial intelligence. How? How can I know that whether behind all your actions that there is a witness? I know, for me, when I am seeing, someone within me knows that I am seeing, I am witnessing. I am witnessing all my perceptions, my thoughts. When I am thinking, I know someone knows that I am thinking. Isn't it? I know. There's a constant witness is there. When I am talking, I know. That makes me different from an artificial intelligence. In artificial intelligence, everything has been imitated. All the stimuli response conditions has been imitated and programmed in such a way they're behaving like human. But is there someone behind them who is witnessing? No. At present, till now, we haven't found any such indication. Now the question is there, that what is the thing which is eternal? That some eternal witness is there, which is never changing. That to certain extent gives me the idea of the self, the eternal self behind all these changes. So that's how a jnani, through analysis, go to that realization, intellectual conviction that the self is not the one, is never changing. I never feel as a small boy I was a different person as the one who was as an aged person or a middle-aged person. It's the same me. Even if I lose one of my arms because of some accident or some amputation, I never feel that a part of me is gone. I'm the same me. So that's the sasang vedya, that you subjectively realize that there is something behind you, the I, which never changes. And now you start contemplating on that fact by negating the idea of your limited individuality, so that you get established in the idea of the self, which is beyond all change, beyond time, beyond causation. It is there, eternal. So these are the two types of meditation. One as a self, meditating on the Supreme Self, or as the Self itself as eternal, both are negating the idea of ego. You are as if hammering out the ego. So that is a long-term practice. That is abhyasa. How it helps? At last we find that by the constant assiduous practice, we attain Dhrira Bhumi, as in the Yoga Sutra it has been spoken of. That Nairantarya, by constant practice, you develop a strong foundation, and then you develop the capacity to eradicate your ego. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when shall I be free? When I cease to be. That I has been eradicated. And then that leads you to that spiritual emancipation. You are no more bound in this limited body-mind complex, and the question of transmigration is no more there, because it is the I, the small limited I, that transmigrates. The Self, the ever eternal Self, is beyond all these changes, all this change in the body, change in our thoughts, in our feelings. It's beyond all that. It is the eternal Self. So at last, when the ego falls off, what happens? All the desires, now I don't have to take care of them one by one, because all the desires, they may be vyakta, they may be avyakta, they may be manifested, they may not be manifested, but all of them are hooked to the ego. If the ego is not there, all of them collapses once for all. So by getting rid of that ego, you immediately, in a flash, go to that realization. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that a room which was dark for maybe thousands of years, now if you go and strike a matchstick, will that room get lighted little by little, and will it take another 1,000 years to get lighted? No. It just immediately gets lighted. So realization comes that way, in a flash. When Girish went and complained to Sri Ramakrishna that I have committed so much of sin, that I am like a Himalaya, an Mount Everest of sin. What's the way out for me? And Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, you are an Everest of sin, that I agree. But that Everest of sin is made of cotton, and it needs just a small flash of a matchstick to burn it out totally. So that flash of realization, but that comes to that assiduous abhyasa. So now we will find that these two practices speaks of the entire spiritual gamut. Now the question comes, what we find in other scriptures, in Advaita Vedanta, any treatise if we read, this speaks of 4 types of practices. It starts with Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhamadi, Shat Sampatti, Mumukshutvam. These 4 practices, what they speak of? First is Viveka, the discrimination, what's real, what is unreal. From that, I renounce the unreal and try to get established in the real, that's the Vairagya. And then Samadhamadi, Shat Sampatti, 6 treasures that we have to practice. What are they? Shama, Dhamma, and then comes Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhan. What they speak of? Shama speaks of the control of the mind. Dhamma speaks of the control of the senses. Uparati speaks of when the mind I'm trying to control, because of its past association, again and again it tries to go back to its old way of living. I have to bring it back. Uparati means constantly, again and again. I fail to keep my mind focused in my contemplation. Again I bring it back. Again, this is Uparati. And in life, we will find that there are so many dualities in the form of heat and cold, joy and sorrow. And they do disturb us. Our mind gets perturbed by them. Titiksha is the idea that we have to be equanimous. Whatever may be the situations of life, try to maintain the equanimity. Don't get distracted by the dualities of life. And that equanimity again is not something just external. That maybe I am extremely angry, but I'm not expressing it. That inside that grudge is there. No. That very nicely in Viveka Chudamani, that titiksha has been described. That what? Sahanang sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam. That I bear with all the dukkha, all the sufferings of life without trying to mend it or have a remedy of it. I just don't resist. But the next line is very important. That happens even in office. Sometimes we find that the boss is extremely rude without reason. He will be just imposing so many things on us. And I know if I react, I will lose the job. So most probably sometimes what happens, I don't express the anger, but inwardly I'm totally disturbed. So that's not titiksha. That first line says that, very interesting, sahanang sarva dukkhanang apratikara purvakam. Sometimes we do. That's the situations of life sometimes force us not to express, but inwardly I'm in full of turmoil, agitation, grudge. So the next line speaks very interesting thing. This chinta vilapa rahitam. Chinta vilapa rahitam. That without that grudge. That to maintain that inner calm. Sa titiksha nigadyate. That's what is defined as titiksha. So unless everything entails in the calming of the mind, that I cannot control my senses first without controlling the mind. It's just like when you are driving a car. If you have to apply the brake, first you have to release the accelerator. You cannot press both them together. So without controlling the mind, you're trying to control the senses is like pressing the accelerator and the brake together. What it will do? It will damage the car. That's what it happens with us, that because of the social norms, my mind is tending towards something, but I know that the socially it is not accepted, so forcefully I try to subdue my senses. It results in all sorts of psychotic problems because you're damaging yourself. So that's why first you have to control the mind, release the accelerator, and then apply the brake. So first comes shama. Shama is the controlling of the mind, and then comes dhamma. And then the uparati. Uparati is trying to bring the mind again and again whenever it's going back to its old way of its dwelling in the objects of distraction. You're bringing it back again and again. Titiksha, to practice equanimity in all the situations of life. And then comes Shraddha Samadhana. So while I'm doing this practice, again and again, by seeing the world, I may feel like just following the trend of the world. Because everyone says, these are all rubbish. The majority says, these are all rubbish, of no use. I may get swayed by their idea. I may be again riding with them on the bandwagon, going with the flow. So for that Shraddha, the faith in the words of the scripture is very important. That what the scripture says, what it assures, and the same words of the scripture, when it comes through the mouth of a guru who has exemplified through his life the truth of the scripture, I take him as an authority, and what he says I believe. And then only this practice can become meaningful. Because it is the journey of the alone to the alone. If you think I will take the world along with me in my journey, know it for certain it's a futile attempt. It can never be. As in Abraham Maslow's pyramid of needs, is a famous idea. That as the pyramid, the base is wide. The more you go to you rise the pyramid, go to the apex. At the highest point, it is just a pinpoint. Just it is gradually narrowing up. That's what the pyramid is. So that's a wonderful idea of Abraham Maslow, that the base, you will find that all the so-called, the basic needs of life, majority are there. When our needs become sublimated, refined, higher and higher, you will find fewer peoples there with you. The pyramid is getting narrower. The more you go to the apex, the more you are alone in that journey. And know it for certain, you can never find the mass with you. And if you think that I am alone, I want to be with the people, then yes, spiritual journey is not yet for me. I have to somehow have that idea that this is the thing where the majority won't be there. I have to be there with that firm conviction that what the scriptures has said, this is the need of very few who has evolved already through the experiences of life to have understood that after all, the so-called all the assurances which the world give in the name of pleasure and fulfillment is just a mere advertisement. They can never really give us any happiness, any joy. I'm convinced of that fact. And then only I can be firm in my determination. That's what is meant by Shraddha. That faith in the words of Guru, faith in the words of the scriptures. So with all these qualities, then only I can think of samadhana, meditation, samadhi, samadhi, so that you can enter into that equanimity. And finally, the final quality which is required is mumukshutvam, the tremendous urge to attain this liberation. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, what type of urge? That when someone is forcefully drowned in the water, the way he gasps for breath, do you gasp for liberation? Do you feel that you have been immersed in this worldliness just the way that person has been immersed in that water filling for breath? So mumukshutvam speaks of that. Now this elaborate practices has been spoken of in the Vedanta. And here in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan is speaking only two practices, abhyas and vairagya. So, is that these two speaks of different practices? If we just try to find out, we will find that actually all these fourfold practices, which has been spoken of in Vedanta, at last can be categorized into viveka, into abhyasa and vairagya, nothing else. Just say viveka, which Advaita Vedantas practice, the first practice they say. Now know it for certain, at the beginning the viveka which we speak of is not a very ripened viveka. It's mere words. That world is unreal, the God alone is real. We all hear it. Does it make any sense? No. It doesn't make any difference. So, what the other practices speaks of? Vairagya, that to certain extents renouncing the desires of life. That to certain extent we feel. That what to speak of spiritual life. Even in our day-to-day life, if you are highly obsessed of something, it becomes a retarding factor for my progress, even in the secular life. What to speak of spiritual life? The something I am so obsessed with is not allowing me to really focus on something which speaks of my long-term gains. So I have to renounce them. Renunciation is not negative. Sorry. It is something positive. What is the positive factor? That I am renouncing something trivial for something which is real treasure. So with that I start my practice. This vairagya do enter in shama dhamma, controlling of the mind, controlling of the senses, and then uparati, bringing back the mind again and again to your object of meditation, and titiksha. These all constitutes vairagya. Vairagya means this dispassion. For practicing dispassion, you have to have this control of the mind, shama. You have to control the senses, dhamma. You have to bring back the mind again and again from the distracted thoughts. And you have to practice equanimity in all the situations of life. These speaks of vairagya. All comes under vairagya. So vairagya can be broadly constituted of this. All this can be categorized under vairagya. Shama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha. Now see Shraddha. That when I hear now how this Viveka actually speaks of Abhyasa. That when the Guru has instructed me that this world after all is temporary, but there is something permanent behind it. At present, I have no idea of that permanent existence behind this flow. Though rationally Guru tries to explain me, the teacher tries to explain me, still I have no such realization. The Shraddha that's coupled with Mumukshutvam, the tremendous urge to go beyond this transitory world of existence, leads me to Samadhana, Samadhi, where I get that realization that yes, it is a self which has been projected as the universe. And then the real Viveka comes. At present the Viveka is just mere words. It's not something which is going to take you to that ultimate reality. It's mere words. As we will find, has been spoken of in one of the Upanishad, that when I go to the realization, it leads to a state which is called Nativada. Na Ativada. Means I am not speaking something which is beyond my realization. Sorry. Thank you. Na ativada. Ativada means even at present when I speak, just say the word God. It makes no sense. So one who has went to that samadhana, realization, then he can really distinguish between the Sat and the Asat. And then he is established in Viveka. So you will find that these practices are not some exclusive practices. One reinforces the other. So I start with the Viveka. How I start? Because of that that instruction of the Guru and of the scriptures, from where I found the idea of the self behind this world of transitory existence. With the faith, I started my journey, and that I have a tremendous urge to go to that realization, because this world no more satisfies me. I have understood through its experiences that nothing can give me that ultimate satisfaction as per the worldly way of living is concerned. So that has given me this tremendous urge to go behind this transitory existence. So this mumukshutvam and your Shraddha, this too at last takes you to Samadhana, to make that Viveka established, Drira Bhumi. Now you know, when you go to that ultimate realization, when you have realized the spiritual dimension of your existence, then you can easily distinguish between the Sat and the Asat. So then you get established in Viveka. So now we will find there's actually all these practices comes under these two categories, nothing, Abhyasa and Vairagya. So of all these practices, the Vairagya, Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, this can be broadly categorized as the Vairagya, which has been spoken of by Bhagavan Bhagavad Gita, and the Viveka, the Shraddha, Samadhana, and Mumukshutva. This comes under this Abhyasa. So that's where you will find, actually when Bhagavan is speaking of, that's why we are saying it's a very broad classification. That what Vedanta has done, in Advaita, the treatise of Vedanta, they have subcategorized these two, Abhyasa and Vairagya, to at last come with at least of these four practices, Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadhamadi, Shat Sampatti, and at last Mumukshutvam. That is not the last, as there is a foremost actually, this Mumukshutvam. It is the anchor on which all other practices are depending upon. That's all fixed to that. Unless you have Mumukshutvam, all those practices are of no utility. As we find even in the Yoga Sutra, it's mentioned that what's the duration of our sadhana? that every course has a duration. That you are going for a graduation, a 3 years course, 2 years course, the duration. Now here you are speaking of developing some spiritual dimension. To reach the spiritual dimension of our existence, you are speaking of developing certain skills. That speaks of the sadhana. What's the duration, about how much time it will take? So in a Yoga Sutra, that one sutra is very important. What is that? Tivra Sangveganam Asana. Asana means it's just waiting near hand. For whom? Tivra Sangvegana. The one who has a tremendous Sangvega, the urge to really go beyond this. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that when you see the red hue in the sky, in the dawn, in the early hours, in the dawn, you see the red hue. The sun is not yet visible. Seeing the red hue, you know the sun will be rising just in a few moments. So Sri Ramakrishna is saying that the red hue is like that mumukshutva, yearning. When it is there, realization is just waiting for. If it is not there, all other practices are like the practices of the group of drunkards. As in the last class we are giving that example. A group of drunkards were rowing the boat throughout the night. At last in the morning they realized they are in the same place. They were rowing throughout the night. They were in the same place. And then they realized, as they were all drunk, they never realized that they have to release the anchor. The anchor was still there and they were rowing, they were in the same place. So without mumukshutvam, all our rowing of the boat is just, all our sadhanas is just like rowing the boat without releasing the anchor. We have still, the anchor is there and we are rowing the boat. So it's of no use. So the Sangvega speaks of that realization. If you really, that urge is there, it is going, you see the life of Ramakrishna. Even without the help of any spiritual teacher, almost without the help of any spiritual teacher, his first realization came just because of the tremendous urge, vyakulata, because of that. And then, of course, one by one, the various gurus came. They automatically came. If the urge is there, you won't have to search guru. Gurus will come to you. That's the thing, that we have to be just like the flower, like the eagerness has to bloom, and like the bees, as if like the gurus will arrive. That's what happened in life of Ramakrishna. So that's with that vyakulata, with mumukshutvam, all other things are bound to fall in its own place to take you to that realization. So that's what we find, that when Bhagavan Krishna is speaking that Abhyas and Vairagya are the two pillars of all our spiritual practices, he is actually including all of them in these two practices. So now with this, let us proceed to the next section of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now Krishna asks a very pertinent question. That the spiritual journey, what Bhagavan speaks, what we hear from the scripture, the first impression we get, it's not easy. It's an assiduous journey. As in the Kathopanishad it has been mentioned, that it is just like walking on the edge of a razor. This uttishtata jagrata prapya vara nivodhata durgham pathastvat kavayo vadanti. It is nishita duratyaya durgam pathastvat kavayo vadanti. It is not easy. It is just like walking on the edge of a razor. Kshurashya dhara nishita duratyaya. But it is at the same time, there is no other way. It is difficult, but not impossible. That's the first thing. Then why I take this difficulty? Because there is no other way for real happiness. Nanya pantha vidyate ayanaya. There is no other way. I have to go, though it is very difficult. It is not impossible. If it was impossible, there was no question of traversing this path. It is not impossible, but it is difficult. And I have to take this difficulty because there is no other way for that ultimate fulfillment. I have to go. Now the question comes, will I be successful? Will I be successful? And if I am not successful, then all my effort will go to waste. all my effort will go to waste. Again I have to start anew. How long this will go on? So that's the idea which we have. That with our unfulfilled attempt, if we die, again I have to take birth. And who knows, again, if I get all the spiritual environment, that urge is still there, again in my next birth, who knows? So that's the question which now Arjuna will be asking on behalf of us to Bhagavan Krishna. The unfinished path, a yogi's quest for perfection. That when I am having a quest for perfection, but I haven't finished the path. So from the 37th through the 45th verse, this is the doubt of Arjuna, which Bhagavan will be answering. The first 3 verses, the Arjuna is putting his doubt, is placing his doubt to Bhagavan Krishna. That what's the doubt? In the 37th verse, it starts with the Arjuna's doubt. Arjuna vacha ayati sraddhayo peto yogat chalitamanasaha aprapya yoga samsiddhing kang gating Krishna gacchati. So a man who is endowed with faith, sraddhayo peto, he is endowed with faith, but not with steadfastness, ayati. He doesn't have that steadfastness. He has the faith. In the words of the Guru, he has faith, but he does not somehow finds that steadfastness is lacking. As in the Bible, a very nice word of Jesus is there. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. That's what speaks of ayati. The spirit is willing. He has the Shraddha, but somehow he finds that the steadfastness required is not there, ayati. Or he has started his journey, but he has somehow got deviated, strayed out, whose mind has wandered away from yoga. Yoga chalitamanas. He has swayed away from the yoga. So what's his destiny? What end does he gain, O Krishna? Kang gating Krishna gacchati. Having failed to obtain perfection in yoga. Aprapya yoga samsiddhi. So he has not attained that perfection. So it becomes, so neither I have attained the goal, nor I can go back to the old way of living. So it's it seems to be a very horrible condition. That neither I have attained the worldly gains because I have renounced that, nor I have attained the spiritual gain. So I am in between these two, without any anchor. It makes me feel totally unplugged. So what's the destiny of such a person? That's Arjuna's doubt. That neither he has attained yoga, nor he has attained bhoga. So that while practicing yoga, a man renounces all worldly endeavors, that is iha. Not only that, we will be doing so many things, not with the highest spiritual gain, with the idea of, all the religions have the idea of swarga, heaven. Amutra, iha, amutra. Amutra means that after I die, I have to be in a higher world. I should be in a higher world. For that, I should be resorting to dharma. I should lead a very righteous life and do dana, this offer oblations to the offerings to the poor, take care of the needs of all the so-called who are deprived. All this speaks of earning merits. This tapa, yagya, dana, this all speaks of merits, which entails my attainment of heaven. So as I have renounced my so-called worldly way of living, so not only that my worldly so-called attainment is I have renounced, even amutra, that after that going to the heaven, that idea also is not there in me. So what is going to be my condition? That iha amutra phala bhoga viraga, I have renounced that. So where do I stand? So that's the doubt which Arjuna is having, and is asking Bhagavan Sri Krishna. that I am having the Shraddha, but somehow I am lacking in my assiduousness. And even if I have started the journey, I find I have strayed away. So what's the way out? So does he attain neither the heaven nor liberation? So for that again, Arjuna is giving an example. Is our condition like a scattered cloud then? But that's the example which is giving. The scattered cloud, it never rains. A huge body of cloud, from that a small part of the cloud has got separated. And once it got separated, sometimes it gets attached to another mass of cloud. But it may so happen that you got separated from a huge mass of cloud, a small part of cloud has got separated, but it couldn't get attached to that another huge mass of cloud. So by the wind it will be blown, and at last it will disappear without resulting in rain. So at last it has not, the cloud is there for rain. The result couldn't be realized. It is just lost. So am I just like a scattered cloud if I don't attain that spiritual perfection? At the same time I have renounced the worldly way of life. That's what Krishna is asking in the next verse. Kachinna bhaya vibhrashta schinna brahmiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimura brahmana prati. So this fallen from both ubhaya vibhrashta. This kachinna na ubhaya vibhrashta. This ubhaya vibhrashta means so I have neither attained this shore nor that shore. I have fallen from both. And I am thus I am unsupported, apratishta. I have no anchor, neither in the worldly way of life nor as far as the spiritual destiny is concerned. So I am apratishta. I am ubhaya vibhrashta, bewildered in the way which leads to that ultimate reality, the Brahman. So that's Vimura Brahmana Pati. I am Vimura. Though I have started my journey to the attainment of Brahman, I got somehow deluded, distracted. That's what Vimura Brahmana Pati. On my way to Brahman, I became deluded, Vimura, bewildered. And is his not condition, O Krishna? He is just like, O Krishna, O the mighty one, Mahabaho, O Krishna. Is his condition not like just a scattered cloud which just perishes without yielding into rain? But it has been separated from a huge mass of cloud and couldn't unite with another huge mass of cloud, and is just taken away by the wind, at last dissipated without getting condensed into rain. Is the condition like that? So that's the example through which Arjuna is trying to put the question to Krishna, his doubt, with that example. So, but at the same time, Arjuna has that Shraddha. The doubt is there. So when we will find that that's the difference between Duryodhana and Arjuna throughout in the Mahabharata. The Duryodhana also knows that it is so difficult to control the mind. He also says that, O Krishna, in one place we find Duryodhana says that it is you who are the Lord of the senses. It is you who make me do what I am doing. Duryodhana also says in one part in the Mahabharata. And Krishna also says the same thing, that just like the wind, like a flame in the wind, the mind is constantly being dissipated. That both are having the conviction of the idea, it is so difficult to control the mind. But what's the difference? What makes the difference between Duryodhana and Arjuna? Duryodhana has no Shraddha. That he takes that to be the state of our existence, and nothing can make us get rid of it or transcend that. But here we find Arjuna has that Shraddha. That is, just now we were enumerating the practices, the fourfold practices as has been enunciated in Vedanta. One was Shraddha. That Shraddha is there in Arjuna. After speaking of his doubt, of his helplessness, what in the next question, in the next verse, he is showing his full faith in Krishna, that he is the one who can take me out of this delusion, take me to the other shore of this suffering, of this existence, worldly existence. So that's Bhagavan, he is the omniscient Lord. He can only remove that doubt. That's the thing Arjuna is saying. What he's saying? Etan me Sankshayam Krishna Chettum Arhasya Asheshata Twadanya Sanksayasyasya Chetta Na Hi Upapadyate. That it is you who should compel, O Krishna, this doubt of mine. Etan me Sankshayam. This doubt which has been put by Arjuna in the previous two verses. This doubt, this Etan me Sankshayam Krishna Chettum. You can pierce it, cut through it to give me that conviction, get rid of all the doubts. Chettum arhasi asheshata. You can give me the conviction. You can remove the doubt in totality. Asheshata. The Sanskrit is a beautiful language. How these words, the way the words has been chosen is wonderful. Asheshata. Sheshata. That there is no remnant of my doubt. It is totally removed. That you alone can dispel that. No one else. So why he is asking him that for you alone can destroy such a doubt. Tat anya means apart from you. Sangsayasya asya. This sankshaya. Asya sangsaya. Sangsayasya. Chettang nahi upapadya. There is no one who can clear this doubt, who can help me to get rid of this doubt, O Krishna, apart from you. You are the mighty one, Mahabaho. You are the Lord. Your strength is not just the physical strength. It is the strength of the spirit. And that's the thing which is required. Even Napoleon, in his deathbed, that's what he was saying, that after conquering the entire world, in his attempt to conquer the entire world, at last he realized, it is the real might lies in controlling yourself. You can control the entire world, but you will find you are such a helpless creature as per your control of your own mind is concerned. The one who can control his mind, he is the real strength. He is the real person of infinite strength. So that's why here Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Mahabaho. That this strength doesn't speak mainly of the physical strength. It speaks of the spiritual strength in which Krishna is established. He is the Bhagavan. So he alone can take me beyond this doubt. So now from the Lord reassurance comes. That don't be afraid. Once you have resigned to me, have taken shelter under me, there is no annihilation for you. So Bhagavan will be reassuring again and again throughout the Bhagavad Gita in so many places. So here also we find his assurance in the 40th verse. What he is saying? Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Partha Naiveha Na Iva Iha Naiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschit Durgating Tata Gacchati. So here, that's the beauty of avatar. There's a constant interplay of the human traits and the divine traits. He appears to be a human being. Suddenly you find he has transcended all the human traits, and it is only the divine alone which is manifesting through him. In the life of Ramakrishna, if someone is to say him is to address him as Guru, he immediately will sharply deny, only God is Guru. I am just the lowliest of the lowly. And when we read the gospel, there are so many who will criticize all those who take Ramakrishna as avatar. They say Ramakrishna himself says that he is the lowliest of the lowly. And you say he is avatar. But they forget one thing, that there is an wonderful interplay of this Manusha Bhava, Manav Bhava and the Deva Bhava. The same Ramakrishna who feels lowest of the lowly, he feels like that. Again and again we find in his life what is happening. He's coming out of that situation. He's becoming Kalpatori, assuring others of spiritual deliverance throughout his life. If you go through his life, you will find so many times it is happening. Even in his childhood days, we find there are so many instances where he is coming out from that limitation, those human limitations, and he is manifesting himself as the divine. So that happens in all this divine incarnations. They take the form of the human, but the divine, which is the covering, is so shallow. With Atma Maya, they come and take the human form, but the covering of ignorance is so shallow. Now and then, the divine, the Deva Bhava comes and manifests. So we know Arjuna thought Krishna as his Sakha, as his friend. But in Bhagavad Gita, we will find that flash of the divinity coming out again and again. So here, once he takes resign in Krishna, that now Krishna immediately is no more his friend. He is addressing Arjuna as Tata, my son. He has become that affectionate father who is fully confident that he can hold onto the hand of his child and take him across this shore of world, this river of worldly existence, ocean of worldly existence. He have that confidence. He is now like the father. That's why he is addressing him as Tata. Tata is my son. Partha, naiveha, na iha, na amutra. Vinashastasya vidyate. That don't think that you have lost everything here and hereafter. But after your death, hereafter. Iha amutra. Vinashasya vidyate. There is no vinasha. There is no destruction for you. There is no destruction for him either in this world or the next. Iha amutra. Nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgating tat. The one who has resorted to goodness. What is the goodness? The only goodness in this life is who has chosen the path of spirituality. That's the only goodness. That's what being addressed as Kalyana, Kalyana Krit. The one who has resorted to this goodness, who has resorted to this path of spirituality. Know it for certain, and nothing can in any way harm him. Even if he gets deviated, he is already in the correct path. He is not going to be in any way destroyed. So there is no evil. No evil befalls a man who does good. Does good means who has chosen this path of spirituality. Nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgating. There is no evil can touch him ever. Tata gacchati. So namutra vinashasya. The path who falls from the a yogi who falls from the path will not have a lower birth. That's what's meant by hereafter. That once you have resorted to the spiritual path, there is no lower birth ever for you. You are not going to regret. That the Arjuna was fearing that he is lost. No, there cannot be a lower birth for you anymore. You may not be liberated, but be assured that you are not going to have a lower birth. Na amutra. Tata, as just we were saying. Now here Krishna is addressing Arjuna as my son. This is very important. So that as Sri Ramakrishna says, if you are holding the hand, if a child is holding the hand of the father, there is a chance that the child may fall. But if the father is holding the hand of the child, even if the child slips, falls out of the way, as the father is holding the hand, there is no question of falling, because father is holding the hand of the child. So there are two types of nyaya, markata nyaya, this, and marjara nyaya. And this is very interesting. Markata means monkey. Marjara means the cat. So this cat and monkey. What this speaks of? The young monkey will be holding onto its mother. When the mother is jumping from one branch to the other, the young monkey holds onto the mother. But there is a chance the small monkey may lose its hold and it may fall. That's a markat. Markat means monkey. And marjara is the cat. When the cat, a mother cat, what it does? The small cat, this kitten, when it is uncomfortable, it cannot move. it does only one thing. It will be calling its mother, mew, mew, mew. That's the thing. That's in the Gospel Sri Ramakrishna is saying. It knows that I am helpless. It is only mother who can help me out. So it is taking Sharanagati, Sharanapani. It just calls on the mother. And the mother comes, holds it by its neck, and it will take it to the place where the mother feels it is safe for the young one. So for the young cat, there is no chance of falling because the mother is holding her. So Marjaranyaya. So here also we find in the previous verse, Arjuna took Sharanagati, that you alone can help me, no one else. And immediately Bhagavan takes the responsibility. Now he is holding hand. So now he is the father. So there is no question of falling. How can you fall? It is I am holding your hand. It is not you who are holding. I am holding your hand. So there is no question of falling. So this is the word this Tata signifies here. And even you know that in biological sense, it is the son who inherits all the traits of his predecessors, not only father, grandfather, all the traits are transmitted through the genes. In spirituality also, the guru is the father. It is not the biological father. He is the spiritual. Just all the spiritual traits of the entire spiritual tradition, which we have acquired through parampara. Parampara means succession. The guru is the living manifestation of that. From him, that is delivered to the Shishya. So that way he is the father. In spiritual sense, he is the father. Because he is transmitting the entire spiritual tradition to you. Through the mantra, through the spiritual instruction. So that way he is the father. So here now, Krishna is going to deliver, he has that spiritual enlightenment to Arjuna. So he is the father. As Guru is the father. So that's why he is addressing Arjuna as Tata. He is no more the Sakha, the friend. He is now the father who is holding onto the hand of his child. So nahi kalyanakrit kaschit durgati. The one who has resorted to goodness is the one who is kalyanakrit. His actions, krit means is a verb. Kri dhatu, the word krit came. So the one who has resorted to goodness, whose actions are good. Who is Kalyanakrit? The one who has resorted to the path of self-realization, of spirituality. Know it for certain, there is no way he is going to meet any evil. Then what will happen to him? Now more specifically, Bhagavan is saying in the next verse, Prapya punya kritan lokan ushitva shashvati sama shuchinang srimatangehe yoga bhrashto bhijayate. Now even those who have deviated, there are categories. Some had really some strong desires. Though they had faith in the words of the Guru, they tried to follow the path because of some strong sensual inclinations, worldly inclinations, they got deviated. That fell off from the path. What's the destiny for them? What's the destiny for them? So that's the thing is being spoken of here as this prapya punya kritang lokan. That such a person, they never go to the degradation. They attain the punya loka, the higher celestial lokas, the higher celestial realms. They attain. And there they stay shashvati sma. For ages they will be there. And then again they have to come down, of course. Because in our scriptures it is mentioned, kshine punya martyalokam vishanti. When your punya is exhausted, however punya you may do, however meritorious act you may do, it is limited. It is not unlimited. So one day it is going to get exhausted. Just like your bank balance. If you go on spending, one day it is going to get exhausted. So you acquire all merits only in this life. In other world, you only spend them. You don't acquire. So that's why Manushya Janma is so important. In the lower animals, they spend all their evil actions, all the result of their evil actions. In higher births, they spend all the results of their good actions. But they only spend. They cannot acquire anything. Man alone is responsible, they say. The word response, that why we are responsible? Because man alone has responsibility. That for a particular stimulus, how I will respond. That ability I have. That when I see a man, a destitute, I can be apathetic towards him, I can sympathize with him. This choice is with us. But for a one who is in the higher worlds, even in this world, who is a very rich person, he is so much infatuated by his wealth. Sometimes you find that he has no choice in his, these reactions. He has no responsibility. He is totally infatuated by his wealth. He leads a life full of affluence. The one who is extremely poor, he also cannot think of having any choice in his response, because he has to every day think of his day-to-day needs for his sustenance. Where is the time for having a choice for his responses? He has no choice. So one is extremely dejected, is totally cocooned because of his miserable condition, and one is totally cocooned because of his affluence. It is the one who is neither too rich nor too poor, the so-called, you will find that all the spiritual traits do come with the middle class. That why? Because their life is something between these two extremes, and they do have the responsibility, that how to respond in a particular situation, they do have the ability. That's why in that sense, human beings are considered as the only responsible beings. And as if you don't have the ability to respond, there is no question of accruing the results of our action. If I know that I have to act in a particular way, then how can you blame me? You cannot blame me. And you cannot blame an animal the way they behave. Because that's the way they are built in such a way. There is no question of response. That even if a snake is a poisonous, you will find the law is there. You cannot kill it. If you go near the snake, it is going to bite you, it is going to kill you, but you cannot kill it. You have to inform the proper authority, they will just take it to the safe distance. Why? Because they don't have responsibility. But as a human being, we are responsible. We have the responsibility. So similarly, the higher beings also have no responsibility. But you can expend all your good karmas or bad karmas either in higher life or in the lower life. So here they are saying that as you have resorted to a spiritual life, that is the one of the most pious deed you have done. Even all the good deeds you can think in the worldly sense doesn't compare with this pious act of just taking the resolution of leading a good life. And this itself gives you so much of merit that you attain a higher world. There you will be just going through bhoga, not yoga. It is that higher world, celestial world is for bhoga. But God allows me to, just go through it, because still I have the inclination for the sensate pleasures of life. So He allows, just like a father, they sometimes it gives some sort of indolence to the child. That the child wants this, okay, let him have this. Through this bhoga, gradually he will develop a distaste for it, isn't it? For even in our family, we find when the child is playing with the toys, do we explain them that the toys are all useless? No. We know one day he will grow out of it. Let him have his joy with the toys at present. He himself will outgrow it. So in same way, God is also quite indolent. He allows us that, yes, but through all those indolence, at last we are bound to evolve spiritually. A time will come when we will realize that through bhoga, we can never attain that ultimate peace. It has to come through yoga. So He allows. That's why it's saying Shashwati Sama. You enjoy in that higher world. And when you come down, you never go to the lower plane. What they're saying, Shuchinang Srimatang Gehe Yoga Bhrashto Bhijayate. Shuchinang. Srimatang. Srimatang speaks of wealth. You are born in a family full of wealth. But again, that wealth has not been earned by unrighteousness. Shuchina, a pure person who has resorted to, that's, we say there are 4 Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. A family who has resorted to Artha and Kama, wealth and the sensate pleasures of life through Dharma. That speaks of Shuchi. That is a family which is the integrated family, well-off family. In that you are born. So that now you get an environment to again start your spiritual journey. How? Because in a well-off family, there is no need for immediate, sustenance, the crisis for the sustenance. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, khali pete dharma hoy na. That if you are not having the basic needs of life fulfilled, you cannot think of religion. So that is taken care of. And at the same time, they are shuchi. They are abiding by dharma. So you get the proper environment to have your spiritual culture, as well as at the same time you to take care of your basic needs of your life, so that you can start with all the samskaras of the spiritual traits which you have developed. They are not lost. They get a proper environment to sprout again. So that's the idea he is giving here. But there are some who couldn't reach the goal just because of a little trace of desire, most probably. They have almost reached the goal. They are very high in spirituality. For them, they need not go to that world, higher world, and again come back in the family of affluent. They are born in the family of yogi. So that directly they can pursue the spiritual journey at a tremendous pace and attain liberation in the very next birth. So that will be spoken of in the next verse. So we will take up those few more verses which speaks of the destiny of a yogi who hasn't accomplished the ultimate goal in this life, whose path is unfinished. So this will be described till the 45th verse. So we will go on with all those verses again in the next class. With this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.